Okay, everybody. Been a while since I've done one of these. This is just pretty much a recap in 3D of all the stuff that I've posted in 2D on the threads. For those of you who are familiar, for those of you coming to it new, uh, if you're interested, you got a lot of catching up to do. Um, where I am now, basically, again, by way of recap, worked up Deck 4, did all the structural for Deck 4, essentially to get me to a point where I could start working up the structure for Decks 2 and 3. Without having 4 complete, there was really no place to start for Deck 2 and 3 in my mind. And it just seemed like a wise idea to try and do it all together. So that's what I've done. I worked up most of the structure that you see on in the ribbing that runs around the deck. That was all developed around Christmas time and then cleaned up after New Year's. The inner and outer hull sections that you see here in place on Deck 4, those were worked up in the same time frame, as well as sections for the Deck 2 and 3. Those still have to be cut down yet, but I've got them hovering in the background. I'll spin around and show those to you here in a few. But mainly I wanted to get the structural stuff out of the way, get the structure exported. The Deck 4 structure has largely already been exported at this point, so I'm left with 2 and 3 to finish up now. As I was working, I went ahead and modified some of the ribbing to handle the duct work for the HVAC systems, the plumbing coming off of the water tanks, the water towers. Put a little walkway in between the water pumps. Dump out of wireframe here so we can see that a little bit better. But you can see there's quite a bit of work that went into the way down to nuts on the couplings for the pipes. And that stuff, I mean, a lot of commentary has been made over time about the level of detail. If this were just for a game model, a lot of this stuff would probably not be there, but I am building a CG model to do detailed filming with, if I so choose at some point in the future. But I also want to be able to use a highly detailed model at some point for next-gen engines, so might as well build it now, and when technology catches up with what I'm doing, I won't have to rework it all. It'll already be there. If anything, I can tweak it and add some more detail. But there's a lot crammed in there. I just figured give you guys a view of everything in 3D that we've been looking at now for a while in 2D. Little bit dim up in the front section here, but mainly dimmed it down, got rid of some of the omnis to speed up rendering time, which surprisingly isn't horrid yet. I figured I'd be looking at 10-minute render times. I'm still getting renders in at under 5 minutes, even with all this stuff crammed into the scene. There it is. Deck 2 is largely done. I've got an environmental controls panel that I have to import to put in on Deck 2. The bathroom fixtures have to be placed, but I'm not going to do that until I have plumbing lines run. Again, that's something that's only going to be for the CG model. It'll never be seen in the game model, more than likely. After that, a lot of the stuff for Deck 3 has already been generated. So it's going to be just a matter of taking assets that I've already created and placing them in scene. Big things for Deck 3 are going to be the telescope in the rear and the photon torpedo room up front. Going to have to wing it on those assets. The telescope, I can do some research on and just essentially build it against what you'd find in a regular observatory, but the photon torpedo room there really isn't much reference material on, so that ought to be fun. Deck 4, once I get down to it, we're going to be getting into living spaces. The conference room is down on Deck 4 in the central forward portion of the deck. Most of that's already been created. The conference table, if you've kept up with me all along, the conference table's already been built, so mainly it's just building the blue structural pylons that run around the room that you normally see in the show. Those haven't been developed yet, so I've got to build those and place them in scene, and that'll, for all intents and purposes, that'll finish out the conference room. I've got a few other things that'll be going in there eventually, but for the time being, I mean, most of that stuff is done. You can also see assets floating around in the background here. It's not so much cluttering the scene. I keep that stuff in there so that if I decide to build an asset on the fly to throw into the scene, I don't have to reinvent the wheel. I can just pull buttons, sliders, whatever off of stuff that I've already created and incorporate them into a new asset. These are the hull sections that I was talking about. Already been trimmed up, cleaned up. They've got to be cut down for Deck 2 and Deck 3 sections. Doors cut out on the back for the telescope. Section has to be trimmed out on the top to allow for the bridge section to nest into it, and then windows also have to be cut out. So there's still a bit to do on them, but the skins themselves are there. To me, that was the must. I've got a low poly version that I could have just thrown on there and been done with it, but I wanted high poly for the CG model, and something that if I decide I want to see interior walls, exterior walls, whatever, I can pop them in or get rid of them as I wish, but it's just another level of detail for the model. That's pretty much it for the time being. Once I get structure done, again, it's back into asset placement for Decks 3 and 4, and then on down into Deck 5 and so on. Deck 6 and 7 I'm not really looking all that much forward to because they're going to be nuts, but we'll get there, slog through it, and get on through the rest of the ship just like the past couple of phases, running through it, developing it in the first place. Last thing I'm going to say is, for those of you who are new to my stuff, my primary build thread is over here on 3D Buzz. Just hit the main page, right down at bottom center, hit forums. Once you get into the forums, you can stop at any point and look at this stuff, but on your way through the forums, it's just as easy. Run down the list of applications that they're supporting. They're giving live classes on the site and announcing those on a regular basis. There's a lot of training material they have available on site and for sale in the web store. Stop and have a look at that stuff. If you're at all interested in getting into asset creation yourself, go grab yourself a copy of Blender. It's free. Download it off the web, get it installed, tinker around with it, and if you decide it's for you, maybe you want to spend the money to get Maya or Max or something along those lines. Don't be intimidated. Don't feel like you can't do it. I think anybody can do anything if they set their mind to it. So jump in with both feet, and here in the forums, you've got people building all kinds of stuff on a regular basis in all the different apps. So pop in, ask questions, whatever. Get yourself some training courses from Buzz. Can't say enough about the material they put out. They put out a lot, and they put out really good quality material. I searched around the web for quite a while before I settled on the Buzz community, so as far as I'm concerned, they're the best. They may or may not agree, but from my standpoint, from all I've seen, they're the best thing going on the web for this stuff. So once you get into the thread here, this thread starts about 6 months into my actual build. Got on Buzz and hung out for a little bit and then started posting the stuff that I'd been working on. So this starts 6 months or so into the build and continues forward, and you can see how I built the rough models and developed them up to a point, trimmed them back down, and then went in and started adding detail. There are 97, 98 pages of this stuff right now, but it'll give you a good view of everything that I've been through on this model to date, actually the two models. Everything from the hull, the floors, the walls, to the individual assets that are being popped in on the walls and whatnot. All pretty much cataloged here on Buzz. So if you're interested, pop on by and take a look. If you've got any input, questions, whatever, just pop in and say something. Happy to respond, whenever I can catch up, and don't be a stranger. For now, that's going to be it. We'll see you next time, hope another week or two, and have either another video up or another update on Buzz. Cross-posted over to Trek BBS and Sci-Fi Meshes as well, and there are a couple other sites that have my material as well, so you can find me other places on the web, but Buzz is my primary build thread. So again, see you next time.